Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have another game being shut down, but this one is a little bit more interesting and a little bit more nuanced than most. If you guys remember, about a year ago, a game released onto Steam called Boundary. It's a zero-gravity FPS set in the middle of space where you essentially are playing Call of Duty in zero-G, but not as good. It had a couple of different game modes that were essentially, you know, TDM, domination, like your basic modes, but you can move around in 360 and shoot in space. The game, I guess, sold a pretty decent amount. The first day, according to reports, they sold over 100,000 units, but the game has always failed to reach a wider audience. It all-time peaked at about 15,000, and in the last 30 days, they've had an average player retention of 9, and that's up 93% from the month prior. The game was essentially all but dead. The writing was on the wall. The game was going to shut down eventually. Well, that eventually is now. On June 19th, 2024 at 6:46 p.m., and we have to take note of the time because that's going to get real important, the developers, Surgical Scalpels, put out a press release on a Chinese social media account where basically they said they've received unilateral notice from Skystone, the publisher of the game, that it will cease operating the game in July of 2024. So, after June 30th, all network functions of Frontier will be discontinued. I'm guessing Frontier is like the Chinese name for Boundary. Please immediately stop purchasing all Boundary products. So the developers have gone out and said, don't buy the fucking game, it is shutting down. Oddly enough, you can pull the game from Steam. I don't know why that hasn't been done yet. But anyways, if you guys are watching this, don't buy fucking Boundary. The unilateral decision of Skystone to stop operating Boundary is extremely sudden and unreasonable for the studio and the players. We immediately negotiated with the publisher upon receiving the notice, but unfortunately we were unable to change Skystone's unilateral decision to stop operating the game. In response to the current situation, the studio is striving to regain the rights related to the operation of Boundary and is making every effort to preserve the account data, creating conditions as much as possible for the subsequent relaunch of Boundary. So the developers are talking with the publisher, trying to get all of the information, the account data, the IP, so that they can go and I guess attempt to self-publish. At the same time, the studio is continuously striving for the income that Boundary deserves so far through negotiation and legal means, because so far the studio has not been able to recover the income it deserves from Skystone. So on top of the game shutting down because it's dead, the developers, according to them, aren't being paid what they're owed from the publisher agreement. Now, whatever that publisher agreement was, I'm not gonna lie, going through our own project and talking to publishers, there is a lot of very scummy publishers out there. I don't know what the deal entailed, but they're not being paid what they're owed from the developers, according to them. This post goes to say that the operation of Boundary may be suspended as a result of all of this, but it will not stop forever. The studio is a stronghold on the game. The position is there, we are there, and we will never abandon the game. Now, that was posted at 6:46 p.m. on June 19th. Just over an hour later, Skystone Games put a post on the Steam page that is titled End of Service Notice. And in this post, it contradicts damn near everything the developers have said. After careful consideration, Skystone has decided to relinquish the publishing rights for Boundary effective at the end of June. Over the past few months, there have been significant delays and a noticeable absence of content updates for Boundary. Despite our best efforts and support, the developer has been unable to deliver the necessary updates and improvements to keep the game thriving. This has led to growing concerns within our community, and we share your frustration. Starting at the end of June, the developer will resume the publishing rights to Boundary. So this confirms that Surgical Scalpel, or the developers, have the rights coming to them for the game so that they can actually publish and self-publish the game. But this post goes on to say, unfortunately, the developer has made the difficult decision to cease all services for the game instead of continuing to run it in its current state, which completely conflicts with what they said in their post on their Chinese social media account. Now, they did say that the operation of the game may be suspended for a while, but it will not stop forever, whereas This is saying the developer will have the rights to the game starting at the end of the month, but they have made the decision to shut the game down. So it's a big he said, she said. And then this post goes on and does the Yap PR. We're thankful for each of your passion and pay. Look, nobody really cares about your thanks. We care about watching games get completed when developers and publishers say they will. But what's way more interesting to me is what you see when you read between the lines. At this point, I think it's safe to say that I'm going to be speculating based on both posts. One being translated from Chinese and one being a PR piece that was meant to push any blame from the publisher onto the developers. But from what it sounds like, the developers signed an agreement with Skystone based on a milestone payment plan. Say the dollar value was $500,000 paid over milestone achievements. These milestones could be structured as gameplay updates, features added, milestones in development based on an internal roadmap that the developers provided the publisher. You hit a milestone, you get all the features you said you're going to, here's another $100,000 to pay the developers and keep development going. This structure is to make sure that developers are staying focused on tasks at hand and not straying from their 1.0 vision of the game. You stay on the path, you get paid. When you read what Skystone is saying, they make mention that no meaningful updates have come to the game in some time, and the developer's absence has been noted. And one quick glance at the store page, and you can see that. The last announcement was from December of last year. We're 6 months into 2024, and they have only posted twice since then, one being a small patch in February that fixed a couple of UI bugs, and they added the data center map into the TDM pool. It's not even worth writing about. And then on April 3rd, they gave an update on the Boundary PS5 build and have stated that they've completed the PS5 build and are currently in their certification phase. It's probably not launching on consoles, at least anytime soon, but that's essentially it. Even their major update at the end of last year wasn't really that big of an update. They tweaked and balanced a lot of things in regards to game modes and classes, and then they just added a PvE mode, but not a lick of new content came to the game outside of being able to play the same game with bots, which, don't get me wrong, is a pretty good update, but if you were sitting at like 5 players on average, that's not going to be enough to really bring people back. So my guess is there was a milestone agreement. The devs haven't been able to work because they haven't been paid or whatever the situation is. The publisher isn't paying because there hasn't been enough work to hit that next milestone, and it's been a standstill for months on end. I do wonder why they opted to do the PS5 build certification if there was this tumultuous relationship happening behind the scenes. That was only 2 months ago, and I'd imagine that these kind of conversations about, where's the updates, the players are dying, like all of this stuff, like these talks should have been happening since, I would say, early this year or even like Q3, Q4 of last. Like the game has been dead since essentially launch. What's going on? What pisses me off is you sold 100,000 units at around $25 US a piece, and you have a lot of people's money in this project that, was thrown to the wayside. I'm going to venture to say, just based on what I'm seeing, due to incredible developer incompetence. And honestly, just the simple fact, the game didn't do enough differently to really bring people into the fold. Even with a unique game style like that, it just wasn't enough. But when you say you're going to be in early access for 6 to 12 months and people bought into that idea, they didn't want you to shut down a year into it. They wanted an actual complete fucking product. And this is the big problem with early access, because at the end of the day, if you bought into Boundary, well, sucks to be you, and like that's why people are losing faith with early access products. I covered a game the other day called Fallen Aces that just released into early access, and they're doing a chapter-based early access, and they've released their first chapter, which is a decent amount of content for the price they're asking, and a lot of people are just skipping it completely and waiting and opting to choose to wait until the game releases fully before they give them their money. Which at this point, I completely fucking understand. Shit like this makes you lose faith in the entire fucking system. And it ruins the idea of what early access should be on paper, and it never fucking is because of people like this. So it sucks. If you bought into Boundary, you're shit out of luck. Try to get a refund if you can. I don't know if that's an option. I don't know if Steam would take care of you like that. I doubt it. but it's an unfortunate situation all around. And even if the developers do happen to get this publishing rights and they can self-publish and put the IP out, I wouldn't back them because they've given me no reason to believe they're going to take this game to the finish line, even with a publisher agreement and money coming in, or according to them, not. Like, I wouldn't have any faith giving any more money to these guys if they decide to go self-publish it. Like, hey, we had a tumultuous relationship with our publisher, we're doing it self-fund. I'm not giving you any fucking money at all. But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think down below. Boundary, sayonara. Another one bites the fucking dust. It's unfortunate because I do feel like a game like that does have potential. It's just not with the people involved in actually creating it. Leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe for more FPS news and content. My name is Big Fry, and I'll see you on the next one.